Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thanks, guys, for joining one more session of India's Mac Admin Virtual Meetup August. I will soon try to set up a in-person meetup, but that will take some time. We have a good action-packed agenda, a very good theory part, and also a demonstration. So we are going to talk about my introduction, small thing about myself, Apple updates, Jamf updates, and the main topic for today is the ultimate guide to manage admin rights in the organization, and a demonstration. How when you implement this in your organization, how will the end user look, the end result look? Okay, so my name is Salim Ukani, and I am well known in the community as Samstar 777. I have 15 plus years of experience both in Mac and Windows platform. I am Jam 200, 300, 370, and 400 certified. I like to help people, and that's where I set up this community, India's Mac admin. I also have a small QR code on the left hand corner that will take you directly to my LinkedIn profile page. If you want to connect with me in my LinkedIn page, you can scan this code and you can join me there. Apple updates. With the best of my knowledge, the latest update on iOS and iPad OS is 16.6 and Mac OS is 13.5.1. And if you want to read about what exactly is included in this version, we have a URL on this page. You can go to this URL, or I have added one QR code here. You can scan the QR code, which will take you to this support.apple.com web page, where you can read about the latest security updates from Apple. Jamf update. Jamf has released 10.49. And if you want to read about Jampro documentation, Jampro binaries, again, we have the URL here and we have a QR code. But if you want to know in detail what has been released in 10.49, so here we go. 10.49 was released by Jamp on 8th of August. And we have three major changes as per me. First is iPhone widgets on Mac. As we know in WWDC, Apple has announced that now with iOS 17, we will be able to share iPhone widgets on Mac devices. But again, how can we as Mac admin control the same? This is something 10.49 brings for us. Local administrator password solution enhancement. There is a good amount of left enhancement in 10.49, and we have a very new API roles and client settings. Let's see them one by one. So with 10.49, Jamf has released a new configuration profile settings, which can either allow or restrict access for a Mac device or iPhone device to share the widgets with Mac. How does it work? You really need to go to devices, go to configuration profile, create a new configuration profile, or maybe if you have already a restriction profile, go to that restriction profile, modify the profile, and under functionality, we see the last item as iPhone widget on Mac. You need to turn it on, and either you need to restrict or you need to allow based on your organization requirement. This is just a screenshot, but if you really need to know how to do that, I have a small video recording for you. So let's go to devices, configuration profile. I'll create a new one. As we now have a good search feature within configuration profile, we will search for restrictions, and under restriction, we will search for functionality. And then on the right hand side, you just need to scroll down to the very last item, which is iPhone widgets on Mac or for Mac. Very important point over here is for iPhone widget to work on a Mac device, both iPhone and Mac device has to be logged in with the same Apple ID, and it has to be iOS version 17 and later and a supervised device. Only then this will work on a Mac device. So from these settings, you can either allow it to work for end user or you can restrict this for an end user. Second main topic is labs. So Jamf Pro 10.49 adds additional functionality to Jamf Pro API. Previously, labs can only be used with manage admin account created during ADE or pre-stage enrollment. If you have seen my previous videos, I have told that labs can only support management account which are created in pre-stage enrollment. There was no scope for existing managed device or no scope for user enrolled device. But now this functionality is also part of JAMF binary, which allows labs to be used on management account created during user enrollment. That means if you are doing user enrollment and if you are on 10.49, your management account during user enrollment would be managed by labs and the password would be changed automatically. Let's talk about certain features of labs. Labs can rotate your management account password via JAMP management framework. And this method of implementing labs supplements the existing method of changing the password through MDM command. So you can do it from MDM command and you can also do it now from JAMP management framework. And rotating a management account password is always recommended, which improves your security. When we implement labs via JAMP management framework, which is part of 10.49, it allows us to do few things. Very first thing is it allows the account created during enrollment to be managed via labs. Okay. So as soon as you enroll a device, be it a pre-stage enrollment or a user initiated enrollment, the management account created during the enrollment are automatically managed by labs. Rotation of the management account password will preserve the cryptography attribute. That means it will also preserve the secure token of the account if applicable. The rotation of the password will be automatic. It is by default. Okay. And additional advantages, if you are if you are migrating from 10.48 to 10.49, any pre-existing management account from your devices, all those management accounts would be migrated to labs automatically. So imagine you had 500, 800, 2000, 3000 devices which were already managed by Champ. But labs was not unable because those were already enrolled previously. With 10.49, all those devices will be my devices management account will be migrated to labs and their password would be automatically changed when the computer checks in the next time after you upgrade to 10.49. Let's see what all changes happens. When you go to 10.49, there are few things which will change. So if you go to global settings under user initiate enrollment and macOS section, you will no longer have an option to set random password for management account. Let's see this in this video. So I'm going to global and I'm going to user initiated enrollment. And in this, we have a Mac OS section. Now, if I click on edit, I have an ability only to mention management account name. I do not have an ability to mention automatically generate a password, or I do not have an ability to set a management account password, because from 10.49 management account password will be managed by labs by default. There are couple of other places which will be impacted by these changes. The very first change is in the device inventory. When you go to your device inventory today, if you are on 10.48 or lower, if you go to your device inventory in general section, in general section, if you go on the right hand side, can you guys mute yourself? Okay, if you go to your device inventory in general section on the right hand side, we used to have a management account payload where we can set password. This section would be removed now from 10.49 because we cannot manage a manage account password anymore. There is one more options in policy. Under policy, we have management accounts from where we used to set a management account password. Again, with 10.49, this payload would be removed because labs is going to manage your password. Lastly, here is the glimpse of a local admin password APIs. We will not do a deep dive in this today, but maybe in one of my upcoming session I can talk about labs API and how can we use API to create some automation. Okay. But if you see this API for labs, we can see we have an API for account which can tell us what is the management account name. We have an API for password which can tell us what is the management account password for that particular device. And we can also see an audit history for a management account. There is also a new API endpoint added in 10.49, which is pending rotation. Pending rotation can be used by admin to find devices on which management account password will be rotated in next check-in. That means the management account password is not yet changed or it is about to change the management account password. So if you want to see how many devices will change their management account password at next check-in, this is the API pending rotation you need to look for. The last enhancement in 10.49 is about the API roles and client setting. This API role and client setting is a dedicated interface which can help us in control the access of Jampro API and Classic API. It gives us an ability to create custom privilege set as API roles, and we can assign this API role to API client. One API role can be assigned to one or more clients. How can we create API roles? So now if you go to Jampro settings, under system, we have a new interface called API roles and client. So when you click API roles under that, we have an option to create new API roles and we can create a custom privilege set. And once saved, we can then create an API client and those client can access these roles. I know theoretically it is very difficult to understand how to create API roles and how to create API clients. These are steps documented for you to view, but I have also created a video which can explain the same process in an easy way. So let's review the video. So if you see, I am in Jampro settings and I'm going under system. Under system, we now have API roles and clients. And if you see, there is no API role created and there is no API client created as of now. So I'll go to API roles and then I will create a new. So as we were discussing about labs, I will create a API role for labs admin. A admin who can see when a password is going to change for management account and audit the same. So I have given the name labs admin and now I will search for that privileges which is required for a labs admin. So obviously, labs admin will need a privilege to look for local admin password. Admin will also have to have an ability to see when the computer or a Mac is going to check in next time. And lastly, uh, the labs admin should also have an ability to look for the audit logs who has viewed the lab's password. Once you do that, you can click outside and click on saved. Once the API role is saved, you can see we have a display name and we have a custom API role privilege created over here. So let's go back, and now we have our role name and our assigned privileges. So once you have a role, you can then create an API client. Let's create a new API client. Let's give it a name as labs admin. These are the clients who will have access to labs admin. So when you give the display name and go to API role will give you a drop down menu for all the roles which you have. You just need to select the role which you want to give to this client. Then you have something called access token lifetime. Access token lifetime is basically the number of seconds uh, for which the token should be valid. You can give any number over here, but if you give a number which is less than 30 seconds, the API client will not accept the same. So let's see it. Once you have set the token lifetime, you need to enable the API client. This will basically give you a unique client ID for this API client. Once you have the client ID, you will need a client secret. So you can click on generate client secret, and you need to save this client secret because it will be shown to you only once. So if you forgot this client secret, you can always come to this page and you can rotate the client secret, which will invalidate the previous client secret. So this is how you can manage API roles and API clients with 10.49. I would recommend you to create and test it out. With that, let's switch to the main topic. The main topic for today is the ultimate guide to admin rights management in organization.
Sam, sorry to interrupt. I have one question. Like, how?
Suman,
I have.
we answer all the question in the last. So can you park
Okay,
it?
okay. Yeah, sure, sure.
Thank you. You can note it down. Okay.
Yeah, sure, sir.
So let's switch to the main topic for today, which is ultimate guide to admin rights management in organization. So before we do a deep dive on this topic, first thing is we need to understand why are we talking about admin rights management for Mac devices. Apple has many platforms. Apple has iOS, iPad OS, Mac OS, TV OS, Watch OS, now Vision OS as well, right? But most of these OS do not have a concept of multiple user account or multiple user role. They are always having a one user state. But when we discuss about multi-user account or multi-user role, it is always Mac platform, and hence we are talking about managing admin rights for Mac OS. This is a slide specially for those guys who are joining my session for the first time and who is watching this video on a YouTube recording and they are not part of my Telegram group, India Mac Admins. If you are not part of that group, I'll give you 2 minutes or few seconds, take a screenshot, scan the code and join the group. So when this when this all started about admin rights management and multi-user account, multi-user roles. All this started after Apple has bought a company called Nextstep in 1996. And after that, they worked with that organization and they created and launched a new Mac OS X, which was a build of Unix-based operating system with multiple user account and most importantly, a super user account named root. A root user can do anything. It can read write user data, it can read write system folders, and it can even read write local file system. But now with this new Mac OS X, Apple has both multiple user account and a super user account. And obviously this account has more access or privileges than a standard user account. And imagine we have one super user account which is root. As root is one user account and the password is also unique to this account, sharing the password of this super user account would be a security issue. And hence, Apple has introduced a new set of super user privileges in Mac OS X. And these privileges were termed as admin or administrator. If you see the screen, you can see we can create an account and we can simply select it as administrator. And these privileges can be applied to multiple accounts. As we cannot share root account password, this was the solution to share the privileges of root account to admin users. But this is how we normally do it through a user interface. How can we do it from terminal? To do this from terminal, we have something called sudo. I'm not going to teach you entire sudo today, but I can tell you that sudo help us in providing administrative rights on a command line. This tool enables authorized user to run commands as root or another user. So you can run a command as a root user or any other user on behalf. So sudo is here to help us in the command line to provide you administrative rights. How does this work? You know, when we promote someone as admin user, how does that guy or that account gets the ability to do everything as root? This happens because in Mac OS X, Apple has installed a configuration file for sudo that it can grant members of admin group all the privileges same as root. If you see the screenshot, root has all the privileges and same a member of admin group has the same privileges. Basically, this means that a member of admin group has the same ability as the root account to run all command and all functions with the root account privileges. That means admin user and a root user has same privileges. So how can we restrict or how can we limit this account? Because it can break things, right? So Apple has actually control in place to limit root user account. So with regards to the actual root user, Apple has put some control in place. Okay. This control includes disabling the root account by default. The root accounts are disabled by default. The root account passwords are not shown by default. Access to these accounts are restricted. And Apple also recommend that do not enable root account until and unless it is absolutely need for you to enable that account. Again, a root user can not do or it is not allowed to make changes in certain system files and settings. And this is something we will cover in few slides. Okay. And Apple recommends that please use sudo to perform those tasks which require root user privileges. So these are those limitations which Apple has placed in root so that it doesn't break your device. Okay. And if you see, allowing an standard user with administrative rights. This is there since operating system Cheetah, and it is same in Ventura. So we are doing this in all the versions. And same goes with the configuration profile sudo. If you use sudo commands, it is also doing the same thing to grant all privileges possible to a member of admin groups. So now let's switch the gears. Now we understand admin privileges is equal to root privileges. Whatever root account can do, an admin account can do. So let's now understand what is the privilege difference between an admin account and a standard account. Okay, an admin account can change account settings, an admin account can change system settings, an admin account can install applications, and an admin account can add and modify user accounts. Versus a standard account can change only their own settings, and standard account can install application in the own user library. Let's see some demo. I'm sure there would be few people out there who will say standard account can install application. Not possible. Let's see with a demo. In this demo, if you see there is a video, I am trying to install Google Chrome application. Okay, it's a standard package where we need to drag it to the built-in application folder, and it prompts you to enter administrator credential. And obviously when you drag it to application folder here, it is a system wise change, and hence a standard account cannot install this without administrative rights. But if I tweak these settings in a way where I will open a standard account user library, and if I create a folder inside user library case saying application, and if I drag Google Chrome directly to user library, and you see that it is now installing Google Chrome. Not only it will install Chrome, you will be able to launch it without any issues, because this is not affecting system wise, it is only affecting the user library. Yes, standard user can install application in user library, plus standard user can install application from Apple App Store and also from MDM solution like Jam Self Service. But I would like to highlight that standard user cannot install all type of application. Imagine there is an application which is inside a PKG, which is a installer package. An installer package will always request for authentication. And as standard user do not have that authentication, that installation will fail. In this video, I am trying to install a package from a standard account. And if I click on install, it will ask me for an administrative password. And as I am a standard account, I don't have a password, the installation will fail, right? Same goes with settings. If a standard account wants to change a setting which is only applied to that logged in user, and authentication request will not be prompt. If a setting which an end user is changing, a standard end user is changing, if that setting is affecting the system as a whole, then authentication prompt will come. So now we understand what is the difference between privileges of an admin account and a standard account, right? And what standard account can do, what admin account can do. Very important thing to remember, anything the root account on macOS can do, an account with administrator rights can also do. That means if a root account can break things, an admin account can also break things. So in order to protect OS layers, system files, Apple has prepared certain controls. The first control Apple has introduced is Apple has moved Mac OS into a read-only boot volume since Mac OS Catalina. So if you remember, we got Mac OS Catalina created a new boot volume which is read-only, and even a root user cannot modify it. Apple has further enhanced the capability, and Apple has introduced a cryptographically signed sealed macOS boot volume in macOS Big Sur. And if this seal is tempered, the macOS won't boot and you need to reinstall macOS. So this is a boot volume protection which Apple has introduced. We also have a protection called system integrity protection to limit what a super user like admin user or a root user, basically a root user, can do. Apple has added another layer of macOS security model. Apple has developed system integrity protection or SIP, which is designed to limit the power of root and to protect the system even from a super user. SIP is enabled by default, right? And last but not the least, one more protection we have is a user level privacy. Apple has always put in place protection for user data, where permission to access a data must be granted either by user or by MDM. You may be remembering that whenever we need to share a screen, we get a prompt where we need to allow certain permissions, screen recording permission, camera permission, terminal permission. So this can be either be approved by end user or by an MDM. So these are the certain protection which Apple has in place. So now what have we covered? We covered what is admin rights, why root user was introduced, what is the privileges, what is difference between admin account, standard account, and what all Apple has done to protect the Mac OS security layer. So now when we we have the understanding of admin rights, let's talk about how can we manage admin rights. We can manage admin rights from two locations. One, we can do it through a user account. Just we can add a user account in admin groups, or we can go to a GUI user interface and promote a user to standard account. We can also use command line, which has a configuration file which can grant an account and administrative privileges, right? And this happens from these places. On the left hand side, you see a directory utility services where we have a group name administrator. And if you see, the group membership has root and there are several users. And we also have standard account there. So once your user is part of this membership, it has admin rights. And once it has admin rights, sudo give you all the privileges of root account. But now we know if we give them a complete admin rights, it can also break things. So let's segregate admin rights. What are types of admin rights? I have segregated admin rights in three states. One is permanent admin rights. You can permanently give admin rights to end user. One is no admin rights. That means keep everyone at standard user level. And third is giving temporary admin rights. And each of these rights has its own pros and cons, right? Permanent admin rights. And if you see, this is the first type of granting admin rights to your user without time limit or any restriction. Permanent admin rights is very straightforward. By default, you will add user to admin group. And pro is user can do anything, they can perform any actions. And the con is they can perform any actions. Any actions means they can break things, right? Second criteria is no admin rights. Keep everyone standard account. This is again relatively straightforward because you just have to make sure the user is not part of admin group. And with this, pro is it user cannot break anything. Cons is user will not be able to install basic application or change basic settings, right? So we come across the third criteria, and the third category is granting admin rights on temporary basis. So granting admin rights on temporary basis utilize sudo, and it is a complex in nature to implement because you need to configure the right settings, right permissions, right output, right? An account, once it is promoted, to admin rights. Obviously, the account can perform any action that root user can perform, but for the temporary period. So now we have seen three categories: permanent admin rights, standard account, and admin rights for temporary purpose. But which one is the best way for us? What is the best approach we can take? Best approach for admin rights management depends from organization to organization. It depends from client to client. What works for me may not work for you, or what will work for you will not work for me. But I can tell you what are the facts which will help you take a decision what is right for your organization. The very important fact is internal cyber policies. You will have a cyber policy which will say, do not give admin rights, everyone's standard account. Or you will have external requirement. There would be a requirement where you may need to give admin rights. There would be an operational requirement where you might have to give an admin rights temporarily. So these are the fact you need to ascertain and then come to a point of which is the best approach for your organization to get admin rights. Okay. So at this point, we don't know what is the best approach. As we don't know what is the best approach, I can tell you what is the best approach I have established in my organization. The best approach for me is by default, I create standard accounts. I don't give admin rights to any Mac users. And then in Jam self service, we always have an elevation policy which can give a temporary admin rights to end user. There is always an exception. There would be few people who will come to you for permanent admin rights, and permanent admin rights in my organization is followed by a cyber security process. An end user will request, a cyber security will ascertain, and cyber security will approve the request. Only once the request is approved, only then we provide a permanent admin rights to end user. How can we achieve this? We can achieve this with a very well known script called Make Me Admin. I'm sure many of you have already seen Make Me Admin today. Make Me Admin is a script which will allow you to promote your standard account to admin account for a temporary period of time. Okay, but the con in this is within that temporary period, an end user has an ability to go to terminal. The end user has an ability to go to kitchen access. The end user has an ability to create a new permanent admin account. How can we fix it? These are certain things which can break things on the Mac device. So to answer that, the fix is a new solution, a new modified script. So I would like to present Elevate User Account. So Elevate User Account is basically a self-service policy which provide admin rights for a temporary basis. When a user is elevated using Elevate User Account, the access for keychain access and terminal is restricted. That means user will not be able to open terminal or keychain access so that he or she cannot break things. We have audit logs. The audit logs are captured from the request until the time we revoke any unauthorized admin account. What is unauthorized admin account? Imagine user is elevated for 10 minutes, and in that 10 minutes user has created one permanent admin account in the Mac. This script will detect that new account, and by the time it is removing the admin rights from the requesting account, the logged in account, it will also remove the rights from the unauthorized account which user has created. As soon as user is back to standard account, the user access for keychain access and terminal is restored. So that's his Elevate user account. But now there is a big question. We need terminal for developer. A developer cannot work without terminal. Then how can we achieve this with Elevate user account. To achieve a developer requirements, we have a separate self-service policy called request developer rights. Request developer rights, when user go to Jamf self-service, click on request developer rights, it will generate an auto-populated email, marking email to the support group, okay, with a subject, and it automatically populates the data. It will capture username, Mac device name, timestamp, OS build, and it will give a business justification field for end user to enter. End user will enter business justification and click on send button. The support team will ascertain the support team will ascertain the admin developer right request, and once approved, user will now see a new Elevate user account policy in Jamf self service, and that policy is called Elevate user account developer. So what is Elevate user account developer? Elevate user account developer is again a self-service policy which will provide admin rights on a temporary basis. While user is elevated using Elevate user account developer, user has access to all the functions and all the settings in the Mac on temporary basis. We have audit logs from request till revocation. In this also, if a user is creating a permanent admin account in this 10 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever you have scheduled or configured, it will also revoke those admin rights from that new account. So this is Elevate user account developer for developers in the organization. But there would be few exceptional case who will need permanent admin rights. So permanent admin rights is a process based on cyber security workflow. The end user has to raise a request in the ticketing tool. Okay. It goes to cyber security. They ascertain the business justification. And once they approve, this request come to the support team. And the support team will scope permanent admin rights, the administrative rights policy to end user. Every approved admin rights ticket has a unique number, okay, and we called it as dispensation ID, and this unique number is valid for 1 year. That means when we give a permanent admin rights, this permanent admin rights is only valid for 1 year. I think enough of theory, this is too much of theory. Let's see how these things work in action. Let's see a demo. I am showing you right now the very first policy live, okay, which is Elevate user account. And let's see how Elevate user account works. So when user goes to Elevate user account and click on Elevate button, the very first thing they will see is a prompt. This is a prompt where we ask user to provide us with a brief justification why they need admin rights. This is put here because when they give business justification, there would be a fear somewhere that okay, someone is auditing this justification and they will not mess things around. The user will enter a business justification or a brief justification why they need these admin rights and click on an OK button. Once they click on an OK button, then Elevate user account will promote them to admin account. And as soon as they are admin, there would be a notification if you see on the top right corner, which will tell them that administrative rights is granted. Admin rights will expire in 10 minutes because I have configured it for 10 minutes. Okay. And we always say, please use these rights responsibly. But remember, this is Elevate user account. Elevate user account means user is admin, but they will not be able to access terminal and keychain access. So let's see that. So see on this screen, I am trying to open terminal and kitchen access, and as soon as I try to open, it will automatically close. Closed. Terminal closed. Kitchen access closed. So Elevate user account will make sure while the end user is admin, they cannot go to terminal or kitchen access to mess things or break things. Let's see the workflow about requesting a developer rights. Now you see on the screen, we have Elevate user account and request developer rights. So imagine I am a developer and I want developer rights. So what I will do is I will go to the Jam self-service and I will click on this request button. When I click on the request button, the script will fetch certain information from the Mac and it will auto populate this email for end user. Okay, like the subject line. The subject line is basically the service name, developer right requested, and it will auto populate the username in the subject field. Okay, and then if you see, it will capture the timestamp, computer name, hardware model, user ID, and this is all automated in the script. And lastly, in this section, we will ask user to give business justification why you need a developer rights. The from field in the email will be auto populated by end user's email, and to field will be auto populated by the support URL. Okay, and user just have to fill business justification, click on send. And once user will fill the form and click on send, this will be ascertained by support groups. And once they feel that okay, this justification is valid and it is approved, then they will provide Elevate user account developer policy to this Mac device. And that's why we are capturing the Mac computer name, right? Let's see how Elevate user account developer looks. If you see, the icon is also different because it has a terminal access. So Elevate user account developer will have Elevate button again. And when you click on Elevate, this will again prompt for brief justification. So we need to give a justification and click on OK. And this will again give end user admin rights for 10 minutes and we have the notification. There is one thing which is not captured here is after 10 minutes when the admin rights is gone, there would be a notification again which will say that the admin rights is revoked. And now as I am elevating through Elevate user account developer, I will have access to terminal. So I can go to terminal and authorize myself. So I'm trying to switch to root and I'm entering my password. And this will work only when you have admin access, right? So I am root now because I have access to terminal. And if I try to open kitchen access, you will see that I have an ability to open kitchen access also. So this is how Elevate user account developer will work. Again, Elevate user account and Elevate user account developer are temporarily admin rights given for 10 minutes in the organization. Now let's see the last way or last type of admin rights, which is permanent admin rights. Permanent admin rights has a very good gear icon on it because this is a permanent admin rights given to end user without any restriction for 1 year. And how do we capture this? Do we know that this is given and the 1 year is expired? So let's see that. So when user get this policy, they will click on Elevate. And in this section also, they will see a prompt. In this prompt, we are not asking them to enter a justification. We are asking them to enter a security dispensation ID to proceed. This is an ID which is unique for this request, and this is provided by cybersecurity. So I'm entering the dispensation ID here, and I will click on OK. So when you click on OK, administrative rights will do two things. One, it will promote the user account to admin account permanently. And two, it will update that dispensation ID as an extension attribute in Jam Pro, so that we can see that dispensation ID in Jam Pro and we can audit the rights. And admin rights are provided. And here on this screenshot, if you see, I have an extension attribute under that device, which is called admin rights dispensation ID, and the same ID is populated here. And what we do is support will do audit quarter by quarter basis, and they will make sure in this quarter which dispensation ID is going to expire. And before 30 days of dispensation ID expiration, end user gets an email. Do you want to renew your dispensation ID? If they renew it, the validation extend for 1 more year, and we get an email that this is extended. Okay. And if user do not act, and if the dispensation ID is expired, then the support team will send a revoke command, which will convert the admin user to standard user again. Now, as we know, what is administrative role, what is root account, what is privileges set, why it came into picture for Mac OS, difference between admin account, standard account, how to manage them. We saw demo as well. How can we set this in your environment? This is the main question. How can we set this in your environment? And for that, stay tuned in the next meetup. I'm very sorry I cannot cover it in today's meetup because setting this up in your environment is very complex. There are too many stuff inside these policies which brings the best experience for end user. So we will cover setting up this in your organization in next meetup. With that, I would like to thank you to join India's Mac admin community today. If you are not part of my Champ Nation community, here is the QR code you can scan and you can join Champ Nation meetup. With that, thank you for joining.